Hey guys, this is Alice from the lABLEd podcast. Just a bit of a disclaimer. My sound is pretty awful on this episode. It's one of the first episodes that we recorded, and it was before I really understood how microphones worked. So please be patient with us. I think we've covered some really great stuff here, so if you can stick it out, please do listen, and I can promise you that it gets better moving forward. Cheers.
Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy and that's Alice.
Hi everyone. And that's Lola.
So much more than what you see. We all live our lives differently. Kaleidoscope identity, and this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the lABLEd podcast. Today, we have Alice Evans joining us. Alice, would you like to tell the listeners what your label is?
So my label, I always think is a bit interesting because I'm technically severely sight impaired. Some people will call me blind, but the condition I actually have is retinitis pigmentosa.
Can you tell us a bit about your condition and how it affects you in your day-to-day life?
So RP is a degenerative sight loss condition. So for me, it means that I've got no peripheral vision and I've got sort of limited central vision as parts of the back of my eye basically die off.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about RP is it's one of those conditions that covers symptoms for like a wide variety of things. So there are lots of people with RP who have got a lot of sight. There are lots of people with RP who've got no sight whatsoever. For me, the biggest thing that I experience is that having that lack of peripheral vision, I'm constantly tripping over things and knocking stuff over. And I also have night blindness.
Okay.
The best way to explain it is just that it takes me a really, really long time to adjust to the dark.
Okay.
But even when I've adjusted, my ability to see in the dark is really not as good as anybody, like people with most of their sight.
Yeah. So you said that your condition is degenerative.
Mm-hmm.
When were you first diagnosed with RP, or was it something that you knew, how earlier on an age did you realise, or did you know that your sight was going to be affected and could possibly get worse?
So the thing about RP is that it's genetic, but in the case of my family, I'm the first person in my family to have it. We don't know whether it's just because it's the first point in kind of my family history where both parents who happen to be carriers happen to come together, or if there was like a gene mutation. Because I'm the first one in my family and I'm the firstborn of sort of my parents' kids,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew to look out for it. So my parents didn't really think there was anything wrong until my little brother came along. So it was as my little brother started to walk, he's almost 4 years younger than me. When I was about 6, my parents took me to the optometrist, and it's one of those, it's really easy to spot my eye condition because the back of your eye is supposed to be pink with blood, but the parts of my eyes that don't work, the blood vessels die off.
Right, so there's no blood there.
Yeah, so the back of my eye is patchy, got patchy white bits basically.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy for professionals to diagnose it. So my mum tells a story about taking me to the local optometrist thinking, or maybe I needed glasses. Because my brother was finding things that like I'd drop and he'd be like, oh, there it is, and pick it up straight away, whereas I'd be looking for it.
Yeah.
And it was just my mum on her own, and she's there trying to wrangle a 2-year-old in his pushchair, me who's like just trying to play with all of the equipment while the guy's trying to look in my eye and then break this news to my mum. And I'm just like, what does this do?
I mean, I've got a disability. Well, my disability is cerebral palsy. As far as I know, it's not degenerative. So I've always known that I never been able to walk, and I will never be able to walk. So, when I talk to somebody who has got a degenerative condition, I always wonder what that's like growing up, knowing that, you may currently have a little sight, but in the future it may get worse. How do you sort of deal with that mentally?
I mean, it's difficult. I'll be honest. It's not something I spend a lot of time thinking about because it is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
I have definitely noticed a deterioration in my eyesight over the years. When I was 14, I was reading regular print books. I was a bit clumsy, but you wouldn't have necessarily known it was a problem. Whereas now I don't feel safe to go out on my own. I can't read, any even large print is difficult for me if the contrast isn't right.
Yeah.
So it's really it's something I've definitely noticed a difference in, and it in a way I'm quite lucky because it's something that happens so gradually. I don't wake up one morning and go, oh, this is different. It's usually one of those things where kind of on reflection I'll go, oh, I used to be able to see that, or oh, that's, I can remember what that looked like last time I was here, and now the way I'm seeing it is different. There's a comforting element to it to kind of feel like that's how it's going to go.
Yes.
Hopefully it will be a slow decline where I'll just go, okay, well, I used to be able to do this, but I can't do it so much anymore. But there is absolutely, I think sometimes one day I might not be able to see any of this, and it's really hard to fathom. The thing I always say to people is, I mean, particularly as someone who has had and still has some sight, you literally can't imagine what it's like to be blind, because if you have had the ability to visualize, like see images in your brain, when you imagine, you picture things.
Yes.
And so I will continue to picture things throughout the rest of my life. And so as a sighted person, when I sit here and go, well, what do I think it will be like to be blind? I don't picture not seeing anything. The only kind of concept I can have of it is picturing myself in a situation where I don't know where things are. And it's hard for me to comprehend, I think, in a lot of ways. I think that's one of the things that makes it both scary but also a little bit sort of less scary, because it's not something that I go, oh, this is going to get worse, this is going to be really hard, I'm not going to be able to do this, because I just can't imagine what it's going to be like.
No. So you just sort of take it month by month, year by year.
And because I can't imagine what it's going to be like, I'm not kind of sitting there and counting it and going, oh, this is getting worse, this is getting worse. And that helps me, because I feel like I'm not sitting, as I say, counting, staring down the barrel of this gun.
Yeah.
Because when I do think about that, it is, to excuse the phrase, crippling.
Yeah.
It really makes me just want to curl up and hide and not think about it. It's scary, I guess.
So I suppose in a way, I mean, like I say, my condition is not we don't think is going to get any worse. But again, you never know. If I think about the things I can't do rather than the things I can, I get extremely sad and distressed and upset. So I tend not to, I'm surrounded by family and friends who think, who have always encouraged me rather than pointing out, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we try not to focus on, we know what I can't do. There's no need to bash me over the head with it. Do you know what I mean? It's that similar sort of feeling, I would imagine.
I mean, yeah, it's quite interesting to hear you say that, because in terms of the things that I can't do, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of things that can be put in place to mean that I can do them.
Yeah.
And that's where my husband is brilliant. He's really good at going, are you struggling with this? Have you tried doing X, Y, and Z? And for, most of my life, I've gone, oh, I'm struggling with this. I can't do it. It's too much. I'm going to go hide in bed and just not deal with it. And it's tough, because he is doing that exact thing of going, you can't do this, and really driving home that I can't do something. But then the reason he's doing it is he's going, well, if I can understand what it is,
why you can't,
yeah,
I can
then
help.
we can, exactly, and we can look at putting things in place to make it so that you can do this.
Yeah.
And that's what, I have lots of like pocket gadgets and stuff that just mean I can read while I'm out.
Exactly.
And that's, those are the biggest things for me.
Yeah.
It's not ever going to make me able to see by just opening my eyes and looking at something, but it means that I'm able to use a piece of equipment to level that field.
And we were talking, weren't we, yesterday about technology and stuff, and it makes it, advances in technology is making stuff like that so much easier, and so that is really encouraging. I think that even I'm finding that technology, we're currently having house renovations, so that the house is a bit more accessible for me, but not completely accessible that nobody else can use it. It's like finding that nice balance, and there are people would probably look at me really weird if they could see how I carry a wash basket, because I need to hold it and push myself. So I carry it on my head.
Okay.
So, but to anybody else on the outside, they think, what is she doing? Do you know what I mean? But I know it works.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, when you're working a guide dog, you only use your left hand, but occasionally you need to use your right hand for holding the lead or whatever.
Yeah.
And a good 87% of the time that I am outside with my dog, my right hand has got a coffee cup in it.
Okay.
So I have 100% been known to be like, right, lead in my mouth. No, we're going this way. Or like, I don't have a hand to carry my shopping because I've got like coffee in one hand, dog in the other hand.
Yeah.
So I am walking through Superdrug with a thing of sanitary towels just in my mouth. And I'm like, I spend a lot of time with dogs. You learn to mimic people's behaviour.
Honestly, the thing, putting stuff in your mouth to carry it, I do that all the time. It's like my second hand, my mouth is. Ridiculous. So you just mentioned there your guide dog. Can you talk to me a little bit about, I mean, I've seen like tweets and stuff and video clips of people that use an assistance dog, and I have seen like they wear a body camera as well, and like people just like barging into the dog, jumping over the dog, just like, oh, sorry, I didn't see you there, when it's quite a big dog. What's your experience of like owning and having a guide dog in society?
I've had a real mix from both sides. So I was once in the park. Granted, it was nighttime and my dog is a black Labrador, but she had her harness on and I'd stopped next to, there's this specific bin that's by a grass verge that's got a lamppost next to it that is ideal for stopping halfway on the route home to see if the dog wants to go to the toilet.
Right, okay.
So I had stopped there.
Yeah.
And I was going, come on Lola, busy. And some dick on a bike literally cycled into the side of my dog. And I was like, mate, like, I can see this dog. How he was just not paying attention. Like, if that had been a pushchair or anything, he would have gone into it.
The harness has got like, isn't it like fluorescent yellow?
Yeah, it's fluorescent. It's just, yeah. And we were under an orange street light, so you really could see it. But anyway, so I have had incidents like that. I mean, for me, the biggest issue I have with people and my dog is people talking to her. My dog's really affectionate and really friendly and playful. And so people walk past her and go, oh, she's like, oh, amazing, somebody wants to be my friend.
Sounds like me, to be fair.
I hope you smell better than my dog. Yeah, she will then absolutely be like, she gives no shits about me. And this is the thing that I'm always having to say to people about, guide dogs and service dogs in general. They're always like, oh, they're so clever and they're so loyal and all of this. And I'm like, I love my dog. She's awesome, but she's just a very well-trained dog.
Yeah.
Like, what she can do is because she's been trained to do it. Fundamentally, she's just a mad Labrador.
Yes.
And the only way that I get her to do things is by going, oh, this is awesome, let's do this. And she's like, this is awesome. But if something more awesome comes along, fuck off, Mum. I've got stuff to do.
Have you ever had like occasions where she's just completely like lost the plot a bit, or is she very well behaved in that?
I had a Facebook memory the other day of in my local shopping centre. This was a couple of years ago now, when you were allowed out in the world and to do things.
Yeah.
And I stopped in my shopping centre to get some cash out. And I dropped my harness, but I had been holding onto the lead while I used the cash machine. And I somehow accidentally dropped the lead while I was putting my cash away, and didn't notice straight away until I put my cash away, and I sort of took a step back and went to pick up the harness and was like, there's no dog here.
Oh no.
And I stood there and I looked around and I went, Lola, Lola, and I just started kind of going, and then I heard a child crying, and I thought, oh, I know where my dog is. And this very nice lady, who was obviously out having a cup of coffee with her friend, brought my dog over to me and was like, is this yours? Is this what you're looking for? And I was like, thank you. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. And she was like, she just came over and put her face in the face of this little kid that was in a pram because they were eating something.
Oh, she was hungry.
She just went over to be like, oh, what have you got? Can I have some? And this poor fucking child, out of the blue, this terrifying, stinking dog, just like, oh, let's be friends.
That does actually sound like me. I think your dog is my spirit animal.
And we've had incidents where, like, my husband will meet me somewhere after work and I'll be like sitting in a cafe, sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, and what I'll do is, if I'm going to be sitting around for a while, I'll take the harness off,
yeah, and
I'll loop the lead around the table leg or something, so she can kind of settle down, but she can wander around a little bit. She can sniff the floor for crumbs. she saw my husband from about 8 feet away and Beethovened the table, where she just ran to him, and honest God, she took this cafe table with her. My coffee was gone. And I'm just sitting there going, Lola?
Oh, no.
I don't think this is the experience of all guide dog owners. I think I have a particularly boisterous and cheeky dog.
Makes it interesting at dinner parties, though, doesn't it?
I've got a lot of stories. And, of course, Lola comes with me to every dinner party.
Of course.
I once went out for a friend's birthday, and I'd done the tying the dog to the table leg thing, and there was a bunch of us out, so we were at this really long table, and we were just having a chat, and I was at the far left hand end of the table, and then my friend Adam, who is actually going to be doing the editing for this.
Hi, Adam.
Adam was at the other end of the table, and he just suddenly went, hello, Lola. And I was like, she's tied to the table. What are you talking about? And I looked down, and she just somehow managed to get her head out of her collar and just fucked off. Thank God she went right to go and see Adam and all of my friends, and not left into the kitchen of the restaurant we were sitting in.
To be honest, if it's a dog, you would expect them to go into the kitchen.
It's just, yeah. So it's never dull.
No,
that's for sure.
Never ever dull. No. So I've known you quite a while now, Alice, and you were telling me that Lola is going into retirement soon. Is that right?
Yeah. So she'll be 10 in February, and guide dogs work anywhere between sort of the ages 8 to 10. They like to give them a couple of years of retirement because nobody wants to be working when they're old. And she's also, all the stories I've just told you. They've gotten worse over the years, because when I first got her, the really exciting thing was just going out and going to all these different places we went to, and all the people we'd see and stuff like that, and just working was interesting. But as she's gotten older, the working's not as interesting to her anymore, so she's distracted by what's going on around her.
Yeah.
And so we got to the point where, you know, I'd been trying to make her be really kind of concentrating on the walks so that, you know, she had more, she was just more focused.
Yeah.
So we were, it just stopped being fun. Like, it used to be, oh, let's take a stroll into town, and she could have a bit of a look around, but she'd also be guiding me, and then we'd stop somewhere and I'd have a coffee and it would be great. She could eat crumbs off the floor.
Yeah.
But then after a while it got to be, you know, we'd be walking somewhere and I'd have to keep saying to her, no, you need to focus and concentrate, you can't just look around, because she was looking around more and looking around and ignoring her duties, whereas before she kind of got a bit of balance.
Yeah. It's like she's got comfortable in the job.
Yeah, but it's more than that, because, you know, I had a good 5 years with this dog of just her being brilliant, of being, you know, I mean, she's always been a bit distracted and a bit excitable, but it's gotten to the point now where she's, and I think lockdown has really not helped, because over lockdown I didn't go anywhere, I didn't do anything. So all she was doing was going for walks in the park where she got to go off the lead and run around, and
she was just being your average dog.
Yeah, and to go from getting to run around off the lead in the park, you know, several times a week, and that being really fun, to now back in the harness and I've got to walk mum to the bus stop and sit quietly for 10 minutes while we wait for the bus. You can understand why she's like, no, I know what else is out there.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a holiday for 6 months.
Yeah,
I know. So in terms of getting a new guide dog, do you know anything about the new guide dog you're getting? Or it's a bit like, I mean, I know it's not exactly like, I've got to get a new PA to work alongside me in a few weeks' time. And my main concern is whether they're going to like me and we're going to get on, is one of the big concerns up there. Is it the same with a guide dog? Because, I mean, do guide dogs have a habit of not liking their owners? I don't know. I mean,
guide dogs generally, they're Labrador or Labrador-based stock, and I've never met a Labrador that doesn't like most people.
Yeah.
What they do try and match you depending kind of your personality and stuff. So they'll try and find a dog that is, you know, if you're a very active person, if you're a very playful person, you know, we are a very silly family. In our new house, you can basically walk in one big circle from the front door, through the living room, through the dining room, through the kitchen, back into the hall by the front door. My husband's new favourite game is to just run in circles around the house while the dog chases him.
Yeah.
And it's great fun for both of them. And it's always nice for me, because when they're playing together, it means I get peace and quiet for myself.
Mm.
So they'll look to find somebody who will fit in with our family. So we'll probably have somebody who is, you know, quite sort of got a lot of personality, got a lot of interest in going to new places and doing things, and not a sort of a sitting around just chilling out quietly dog. Although I'm a very sitting around person in my personal sort of time. I'm quite busy in my life, so I need a dog that kind of goes out and does stuff.
Yeah,
there's a lot of criteria that they kind of want to match you with. It's not just about personality, it's also about, you know, how you walk, how fast you walk.
So do they give you like 2 or 3 dogs, and then
they find a dog that they think would be a good fit for you, and they introduce you and you do a walk with them, and if you get on, then they start kind of moving things forward. Lola's my first guide dog, so this is all of a bit of a new experience for me. She, like, I spent a while getting to know, like, people at guide dogs before I got Lola. They asked me a bit about my life, what I like to do, you know, the sorts of activities I do and all of that stuff. And then went away and came back and said, we think we've got a dog for you. And they did. I did recently have a sort of a trial. I've been calling it a test drive.
Yeah. I was going to say first date with a dog, but that's like some Channel 5 documentary.
I'd watch that.
Sorry, carry on.
And I sort of test drove a guide dog a couple of weeks ago just to see how we got on, and she was a very lovely dog and very sort of sweet, but we decided for a couple of reasons that she wouldn't be quite the right fit for me and for kind of our family.
Yeah.
So, they do try and kind of find that, because the worst, if you don't get on with your dog, if it's not a good match and a good relationship, then it's just going to break down, and they're either going to have to take that dog away and try and find them a new owner, or or it will be too late and that dog won't train well with a new owner, so they'll just end up, they've spent all this money on a dog that isn't actually going to be able to provide the service it's supposed to be.
No.
And it's hard finding that line. It is a service animal. She is my mobility aid, but she's also, the person. I say person, obviously I know she's a dog, but
I know what you mean.
She's the person I spend most time with. I spend more time with my dog than I do with my husband, with anybody. She has seen me at my absolute most vulnerable. She comes to smear tests with me.
Yeah.
There's nobody who can react better to my personality and me than my dog.
So you said before about not feeling very confident to go out on your own anymore now that your sight is deteriorating.
Yeah.
Do you think having a guide dog helps? And what kind of tips and tricks do you use to help build your confidence up again? Because I always think you're very confident. You come across as very confident.
Tips and tricks is kind of a hard one, because really for me it's always kind of been about necessity. When they matched me with Lola, she was 2.5. She had all this energy. I had to take her out every day. I had to do stuff with her every day, otherwise she'd be climbing the walls.
Yeah.
So I just had to suck it up and get out. And
do you think that was a good thing?
Yeah, definitely, because the more I did it, the more I saw that she enjoyed it, the more joy I got from just spending time with her, and like, it's really nice. I've always got someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And obviously she's got nothing interesting to say in return. But it really helped. I felt like that necessity of having to take her out helped me develop a relationship with her, and then the relationship that I developed with her made me feel confident enough, because I felt like there was somebody who was always going to be on my side.
Yes, like, you've got a mate sort of egging you on, going, you can do it kind of thing.
She's my, she's like an extra limb to me, and she's the confident one who goes, come on then, let's go and do this. And I go, oh, okay, well, if Lola thinks we can do it, then let's fucking do it.
We'll do it. Yeah. Talking about confidence, and I know that you're very passionate about sort of body confidence and all that kind of being self-confident in that kind of respect. How do you think that your impairment has affected your own body confidence, and how has that changed over the years? Has it changed over the years?
I think for a long time I was not actively told by anybody, certainly not told by my parents in any way, that my body didn't work properly. And I think I got that feeling from society. I got that feeling from physically not being able to do some of the things that my peers could do because I couldn't see, or not feeling safe to do those things, or there was absolutely an element in just there is a difference between going, what can't you do, how can we fix it, and you can't do this, why don't you go and do that instead? Which was kind of the approach I had at school. I can remember netball, and I was just like, I'm not a team sports person, just in general.
Can I just tell you, I hated PE when I was at school.
Yeah.
I did once break a girl's arm in hockey. No, what makes it worse is that she had brittle bones.
Oh no! Did you do it on purpose?
No. People might think I did it on purpose. She was in the way, and I got a bit carried away and lifted it above my head, the hockey stick. And before I knew it, it was just like a crack. And she just looked at me and went, "You've just broken my arm." And I went, "What?" She went, "You've just broken my arm." So I've never lived that down. I'm not a Paralympian or a team player or anything really, because I'm not very good at sport. I'm terrible. But
I like exercise I can do on my own. Like, I like exercise where I can switch my brain up and just kind of do, run or do yoga. So like, obviously I don't run. I've tried running with my dog. I'd die because we'd be halfway down, so she'd be like, "Oh, what's that over there?" And I'd be in a canal or something.
Have you got a running machine then, or something?
We've got a treadmill, and before the world went horrible, I did have a friend I went guide running with.
Right.
But obviously that's literally like me holding on to her. You cannot do that socially distanced.
No, you can't.
That's not a thing at the moment. No. But so I can remember in netball.
Yeah.
I went to an all-girls school as well, and I went to a mainstream school. So I was the weird blind girl at school.
Okay.
And I remember they decided that they were going to make me take part in netball. And I was like, this really seems like, I can understand there are some team kind of things that you can make accessible, but I was a 14-year-old girl. I did not want to play fucking netball.
No.
But they were like, no, all of the rest of these girls here are miserable and outside. You have to be miserable and outside on top of also being disabled.
Did you not use the disabled card? Because I would have done. I'd have put it on really thick.
I tried. No, they went, we'll just make sure people say your name before they throw the ball to you.
Okay.
So I got 20 minutes of Alice smack in the face with a netball. Alice smack in the side with a netball.
And they're really heavy.
This stuff is coming at me as well. I'm not if my husband tries to like chuck the TV remote or something at me, my immediate reaction is, oh my God, hands over my face, close my eyes, I'm going to die.
Mine too. It's so funny.
Yeah. And so I look back and I think, if that had been my daughter, like, knowing me, I probably didn't tell my parents about it because I would be really mortified about it. I would have found it really, that would have been really traumatizing for me. I mean, the fact that I remember it just shows it really was upsetting for me.
Yeah, completely agree.
Because it was, it was that awesome combination of being, feeling like a social outcast, but also being physically battered by netballs. So, yeah, it was, I can't even remember the question you asked me.
About body confidence.
Oh, yeah. So, for me, there's been a lot over the years of feeling like my body is stopping me, or that because of my disability, I can't do the things that other people can do. And I mean, when you look at it kind of logically, yes, that's exactly what's happening. But I am generally quite a confident person. I am absolutely well, let's see what happens with this, let's have a go. And so to spend your life going, well, let's have a go, and then having a go and going, oh no, I can't do it, it's really hard, or having a go and that go is, being hit in the face with a netball.
Yeah.
It didn't take away from my confidence about my personality and because my parents raised me to go, you can do whatever you want to do. And that's great. I can do almost everything I want to do, but there are some things I can't do because I physically can't see well enough to do it.
No.
And I know, that there are lots of blind sports, there's blind cricket and stuff like that. I tried playing blind tennis once and basically stood there with the tennis racket in front of my face going, I don't like it.
Can I just say, I do not understand cricket and I do not understand tennis. My best friend, he likes tennis, and every time Wimbledon is on, he comes around and explains Wimbledon, and then has to come back the next year and explain Wimbledon again because I've forgotten it.
The only interest I have in tennis is strawberries and Pim.
Yes. Well, I don't really like Pims either, really. So I'll just have the strawberries, please.
Okay.
But no, it's really fascinating because, I mean, obviously with me, I've got a very visible physical disability, and I do think that having a disability where, you know, I'm so much shorter than other people my age, I'm not very tall.
So how tall are you?
4 foot something.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a little titch.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I've got what we call a CP belly because I sit down all the time, and it doesn't matter how much weight I lose, I've always got this belly. So I've never really thought of myself as somebody who is like conventionally pretty. Do you know what I mean? Like conventionally attractive, not pretty. Pretty is the wrong word, because pretty, you can be pretty, and
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
It's meeting that the ideal standards of woman bodiness.
And I think that when I was a kid, growing up, and when I was a teenager, I never saw anybody like me in magazines or on the television or anybody like that. Whereas nowadays there is more sort of representation of people in wheelchairs, you know, in magazines and things like that. Maybe not the television, but it is getting better. And I just wondered, like, I mean, that I think that has had a knock-on effect with my confidence now as an adult. I constantly think like, oh, like somebody will say, like, if we're out somewhere and my friend will clock somebody looking at me, and it's a bloke, and a quite nice looking bloke, that she'll go, oh, he's looking at you, and I'm like, no, he's not looking at me. Why would he be looking at me? What's he looking at me for? But I think that is ingrained in the whole, you know, body confidence thing.
It's interesting for me because, you know, if you put me somewhere and I don't have to walk around and I don't have to do any reading and stuff like that, like I don't have a disability.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a disability because I constantly see flashing lights and shit like that, but I don't have a visible disability. I don't have visible needs. And so for me, seeing, you know, perfume adverts of women lounging on the beach or whatever, you know, in their bikinis, I think that could be me, and I still feel that pressure of that's what I should look like.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason that I should look like some beautiful, you know, model, and I don't. And that's not because of my disability.
I think the pressure that you feel is the same sort of pressure that any other woman feels.
Yeah,
do you know?
But there is that, because I have also had that. Well, my body isn't quite letting me do the things that I may want to do. It has does turn into a bit of a double-edged sword of going. Double-edged sword's not really the right metaphor, but it's a two-headed beast, because I'm going, okay, so I'm feeling all the pressure that most women are feeling about that kind of, you know, Western ideal woman, but I'm also and you know, all of those women are going, my body isn't good enough, my body isn't good enough, and I'm going, my body isn't good enough, and my body's not good enough because my eyes don't work the way that I want them to.
Exactly.
So I'm getting the two sides of it.
I don't know about you, Alice, but I always feel like it's a bit of a two-headed beast for me in that respect, because in some respects there are bits of my body that I really don't like, and then in the other respect there is bits of my body that I am so proud of, because in spite of everything, all the barriers that it's had to do, you know, the muscle tension, the aches, the pains, everything, it's still here, and I'm still existing, and I'm still able to have a life. So it's a very difficult balance to say I completely love my body, and you know, I love the way I am, and it's very difficult to just outrightly say I am body confident, when actually I can't really say that, because even though I'm proud of it, there are bits of it that I wish didn't look the way they look, or that kind of thing.
It's taken me quite a lot of work to get to a point where for me, it's about how I feel in my body. And I know that I feel really good if I'm doing yoga and running a bit. Not because it keeps me thin or whatever, but because doing those things feel, you get the endorphins in the moment, but also the yoga, I suffer from, when I get stressed, I get real bad muscle tension absolutely everywhere. For years, it's given me really hideous IBS, because I just get so wound, like literally physically wound up.
Yeah.
And I get random cramps, and I've recently started experiencing sciatic pain from just feeling physically so tense.
Yeah.
And so doing stuff like yoga and doing a bit of strength work and stuff like that is really good for me, because it loosens my body up. And so I end up feeling actually happier and more comfortable in my physical self. And the fact that it does mean that it keeps me a bit trimmer or whatever, also works in my favour, because I really like to have like donuts and cake for breakfast. So I get to have my cake and eat it, literally.
I definitely think that we have the same outlook on these sorts of issues, because I mean, I've recently been on a diet, and I've given up refined carbs, refined sugar. I've stopped drinking, which is a big mistake, because I could really do with a drink. And I didn't do that to make me look better necessarily. If I lose a few pounds, that's brilliant, and my clothes fit better, that's brilliant. But if it helps with my aches and my pains and makes me feel more comfortable to do things in my day-to-day life, then I'm all for it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's exactly the same for you, is what I'm getting.
Yeah. And I mean, I think about, like, I look at Jennifer Aniston, and I think she, especially, it's awful. You consider how old she is. I hate myself for saying it, but considering how old she is, she looks freaking amazing.
She does.
But it's because she basically lives on chia seeds and cucumber water.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but life is too fucking short.
Yeah, it is. It really is. When I was talking to my GP about, losing some weight and things and starting to feel a little bit better, and I said, I actually said to him, I'm giving up all the sugar and the carbs and everything. I said, so I'll be thin and I'll be healthy, but I'll be miserable. And he said, Lucy, you're 33 years old. He said, just, you can take your foot off the pedal now and again. Just don't eat don't eat all that crap constantly. It's about balance, isn't it? Yeah. And I am one of these comfort eaters. If something is upsetting me, I will eat all of the ice cream, all of the crisps, and have all of the booze just to make me feel a little bit better, and it never does.
I think I've got quite lucky. I've done a lot of work over the years on sort of my relationship with food, and so for me, I don't like eating stuff if it doesn't make me feel good.
No.
If it doesn't feel right in that moment. And sometimes, like particularly over the summer, I will eat just fruit and yogurt and just more fruit, because that makes me feel really good in the sunshine when it's warm, just, and I will fill up on fruit throughout the day, and I might go, 3 or 4 days without having any carbs, sort of refined carbs, no bread or pasta or anything. But then I also, I know that I really like pizza. It makes me really happy. I really like hot carbs with cheese. It really is a really good thing to just make me, oh yeah.
It's like we're coming towards the end of October, and Alice will tell you that I've given up drinking for October for Macmillan Cancer Support. And I'm full of instant regret that has been lingering for 31 days. So the one thing I am looking forward to is a beer and a cheeseburger on November the 1st. And that is what I'm looking forward to. And I have realised that this diet I've been on, and I have lost quite a lot of weight on it, I have my relationship with food after that initial 8 weeks of restricting yourself. They say after that 8 weeks, have a bit of a rest period, and then if you want to lose more down the line, do it again, have a rest period. So it's a kind of balancing act, really. And I have realized that my relationship with food has got better purely, I think, because I am feeling better. You know, it has so much more health benefits.
I think the worst thing that you can do is, and don't get me wrong, I do it, but the worst thing that you can do is comfort eat, because food isn't going to help you deal with the difficult emotions. You should eat food and enjoy it, and it should bring you joy, and it should make you feel good.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't eat food to stop yourself feeling bad, and that doesn't work.
I've also realized as well that you if you do have the odd treat and you fall off the wagon and you have a bag of chips, don't feel guilty when you should be on a diet. Don't feel guilty about having the bag of chips if you really want the bag of chips. It's a bag of chips. It's not going to do any harm so long as you are sensible with it. And that's, I think I am learning very slowly. It's all right. Do you know what I mean? It's fine. So long as you keep an eye on it and don't end up down McDonald's every morning before they open with your nose pushed up against the door. Let me in, can I have a bacon muffin, please? It's going to be fine, you know? And it just makes everything easier. It makes transferring easier, makes moving around easier, just makes everything easier. And it makes sense to look after yourself rather than comfort eat.
I definitely, for a long time, had this voice in my head telling me that if I knocked something over as I walked past it, there was a voice in my head that said, you knocked that over because you've got big hips, not because I can't see and it was in the part of my vision that isn't there, and that of course I knocked it over because some dickhead left something on the corner of a table in the house of somebody who can't see.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it came from. I don't know how that kind of voice grew in my head, but that was a voice in my head for a really long time that would say things like that to me. And so I brought those two things together, and it took a lot to separate them again and to learn that actually I might feel really horrible if I knock something over. You know, I've broken people's favorite mugs and knocked over pictures of, you know, grandparents and stuff like that. You know, I have done stuff that I feel really shitty about doing that's been a complete accident. And it's learning that kind of, well, it was an accident with something you don't have any control over. And I think that, you know, you can control your weight. A lot of people can control their weight. Not everybody can, but there are ways of controlling your weight. But actually controlling your weight isn't going to control your ability to see. Fundamentally, that's what it came down to for me. And so I had to try and separate that and learn that, you know, if I want to change my body, if I want to change the way my body looks, that I need to put the work into it and I need to address it, but I can't address it in an attempt to also try and address my visual impairment, because I could be 30 stone or I could be 3 stone, and neither of those is going to help me see any better.
It's been a really, really interesting. We've covered a lot of topics in this hour.
We have, yeah.
And it's been really, really interesting to talk to you about your life with a guide dog and your blindness and your body confidence issues. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Alice.
Thank you.
I think we're going to... I think that's where we wrap it up. So thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Thanks go to our editor Adam Hall, our music composer Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.